Hello YouTubers and fellow hams. Well, we're going to have a look today at tracking satellites under Linux for hams. There's many different distributions of Linux. Two popular ones are Debian and Ubuntu. Many others are based on Debian, as is Ubuntu, so what I'm talking about in here is mostly going to apply to those. If you're using Red Hat or some other program, parts of this are not going to be helpful to you. But for most of you running Linux, this will apply. So on your Linux desktop, there are, well, first thing we need to do is we need to install some software. And there are different ways to do that. The hardcore guys like to use the command line. We're only going to use the command line for one thing if you don't already have it. There is a program called Synaptic, and it is a package manager, a graphical program for letting you install software that's available for your distribution. And we want that, believe me. It's much easier than doing things through the command line. So if you don't already have Synaptic, you need to install it. And to do that, you'll only have to do one thing in the terminal. So open a terminal, and when you're in there, type sudo apt get space install space synaptic synaptic. When I hit return, it's going to ask for my password, and then it's going to install the Synaptic Package Manager. And it's done. Now I can exit the terminal. Now, it's either going to be under Applications menu under System Tools, or it's going to be under System Administration. You should see Synaptic Package Manager. When you run this, it'll ask for your password because you have to be authenticated to install software. And here it is. Now, Synaptic Package Manager shows you categories of available software over here. And if we scroll down, we'll see, well, somewhere there's ham radio or amateur radio. Oh, here it is, amateur radio. So there's categories of different things you can search for, and you can scroll through the list and look at all the amateur radio software that's in here, things like that you'll recognize, like FLDigi. What I'm looking for is this one, gpredict, satellite tracking program. So I could find it by searching through the categories like this and scrolling around, or if I know what I'm after, I could just click search, and I could search for gpredict, and there it would find it for us. So gpredict is a lightweight, very capable satellite tracking program focused on ham radio. It's very efficient. It'll run great on an older machine, on older hardware, older Pentium laptops or whatever. It hardly uses any CPUs. So I've selected it, marked it for installation. All I do is hit apply. And it will download Synaptic and install it, or I mean gpredict and install it. Now we can close Synaptic Package Manager, and if I go to my Applications menu, I see a ham radio menu, and under here, GNOME Predict. Here it is. So this is Predict. It's showing us a few default satellites, but the first thing we want to do after we install it is we want to update its database of satellites. It uses what's called TLEs, two-line elements. They are a standard method of publishing satellite tracking data from NORAD. NORAD tracks tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of objects orbiting the Earth, including all the satellites, and they publish information on the current position of various satellites. So what we'll do is we will go up here to Edit, Update TLE from Network, and the program will go out to the internet and fetch all the current data for the satellites we have installed. You can see it updated almost 1,400 satellites in there. By default, it's only showing us the NOAA satellites, but it has all kinds of satellites in here. So we need to enable the amateur satellites, and the ISS, and some of the others we might be interested in. So if I come up here to this menu for the tracking module, and I go to Configure, these are the available satellites. These are the satellites we're tracking. So if we come over here and we search for ISS. Here's the ISS. We'll pop that over there. We could search for the Oscar satellites. I think they all start with OA. No. There we go. Oscar. So you could search for the list for the satellites you're interested in tracking and just add them. So I don't even know if Oscar 32 is still active, but we'll add it over here. This is just for illustration. I wonder, group, amateur radio. Oh, here's all the amateur satellites. So you'd find the one that you're interested in watching, LO19, pop it over there, and add it to the list. When you've got them all added, the ones you're interested in, you hit OK. It will update up here and show you the position of all the satellites. And it shows you their horizon. This is a circle that represents the areas on the Earth that are currently able to see or receive the satellite, where it's above the horizon. Ground stations. Yeah, by default it won't have a ground station in there, or it won't have your ground station. And we add that here. We go up to File and Preferences, and we go over here to Ground Stations under General. And you can add new. I've already added Fort Wayne, but you can add new, give it a name. For location, if you hit select, you can search. And so we just search through here. Let's say we were in Alabama and we were in the city of Evergreen. We could pick that, hit OK. Evergreen shows up. We give it a name, Evergreen, and we'd hit OK, and it's now added to the list. Over here you can check your default ground station. Now a note on ground stations. The program is not going to show it to you right away. You have to quit and relaunch the program. So if I set Evergreen to be my default and I hit OK, we're still seeing Fort Wayne as the default. But once I quit and relaunch the program, Evergreen would show up as the default. But I don't want to do that. I'm in Fort Wayne. But that's how that works. So I'll go back here and we'll change that back. And we'll delete that one. So you set your ground station. And the reason for doing that is not only so you can see where you're at on the map and which satellite is in your range, but also this target here, this shows our visible horizon and where the satellite is that we're watching. So right now, NOAA 18 is over to the west, way down on the horizon, elevation 3.7 degrees. So it's right down at the horizon right now, and you can kind of see that here on its footprint. Let's say we're interested in the ISS. I can click on it here, select it over here. This is some interesting information it shows you. It shows you its current position, elevation, and all kinds of other goodies. But the one I'm interested in is next event. This is the next time that ISS is going to be passing overhead, and we get a date. So it'd be March 18th, which is tomorrow. At 0:15, so 15 minutes after midnight tonight, ISS will pass overhead. If I want more data on that pass, I can come up here, show next pass, and predict will show us the pass as it's going to take place. The time that we will acquire the signal, that it will come above the horizon, its azimuth, which way you point, and its elevation. And you can see as it passes how the elevation rises and then falls off. So the highest elevation of this is only going to be 15 degrees. It's not going to be very high above the horizon at all. That's not a good pass. Directly overhead, elevation would be 90 degrees, which would be straight up. So the closest that these numbers are going to get to 90, the better the pass, because it's going to come right overhead if those are near 90. And we can look at this pass in various ways. We could look at this polar plot, where it's going to come in from the south and move right along the horizon and exit just north of east. There's a plot of azimuth and elevation over the time of the pass, so you can see at a glance where its maximum elevation is going to be on time. So this is a pretty useful detail view of the upcoming pass. Now what if we want to know if there's going to be a better one in the future? Well, I can go here and hit Future Passes, and it'll show us a list of upcoming satellite passes with the date and time. And what I want to look at is I want to look at maximum elevation, Because remember, the closer that is to 90, the better the pass. So it looks like tomorrow at 1:51 in the morning, it's going to hit 57 degrees. Now that's far enough up on the horizon that you could probably get a fair signal from it if you were trying to receive the ISS. Here's one that's much better, 75 degrees. We still don't have any that are close to 90, so it's not going to be good for the ISS for the next couple of days. But this one, which is going to be on Sunday at almost 1 in the morning, is going to be a fairly good pass. So Predict can show you upcoming passes on the satellites that you're interested in. If I wanted to see when NOAA 18 is going to pass overhead, I'd come up here and I'd pick it in my list and just say future passes. And look at these numbers. Oh, here's a good one. Look at that. Tomorrow at 8:54 in the morning. It's going to be a 15-minute pass, and it's going to hit 83 degrees, almost directly overhead. So there is a really good chance at recording the WeatherFax data from NOAA 18 right there. So this is where gPredict is useful. If you want to see these satellite ground tracks in real time up here, you can just right-click on the satellite and say Show Ground Track, and it will show you where it's going on each orbit. So you can see as it's, it passed near us, and now it's going to be farther and farther away with each consecutive orbit. But you can see its path traced on the map up here. So gPredict is a very useful program under Linux for tracking satellites and figuring out when they're going to pass overhead and when your best chances are to monitor them, record them, or work through them. gPredict does have the ability to do radio and antenna control, where you can have it control the transmit and receive frequencies of your radio to take into account Doppler shift. It's a little complicated setting this up. It requires another little piece of software that you have to run at the command line with a lot of detail about your rig control. But once you set that up, this is extremely useful. As you know, Doppler effect causes frequencies to shift as the satellite approaches you and moves away, and this will allow you to have your radio automatically controlled by gPredict as the satellite passes, so you don't have to keep twiddling the dial. You could also have it control antenna aiming. Antenna control. I don't have it configured. But with antenna control, you could have it aim your antenna if you had a properly set up set of Yagis with a couple of rotors on it for azimuth and elevation. So quite a powerful piece of software, easy to use, and of course free, as most things are with Linux. So there you go, gPredict. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Also, if you're not already a subscriber, click to subscribe. Join us on the Facebook channel for discussion about the videos. And if you'd like to help support this channel, please click to support me on my Patreon page.